These are 5 things that I think you should never share with anyone. And I learned a couple of these the hard way, and I don't want you to go through that pain, so let's jump in and I'll share my list. The first one is, you know, talking to people about your salary or your savings is, in my opinion, on a need to know basis. And the reason why is when 2 people get together and they talk about how much they're making or how much they've saved, there's usually one person that's going away disappointed or angry, hurt, or jealous, and there's really very little to be gained. And now, I retired as a financial advisor. I needed to know how much my clients had saved and how much that they were making so that I could help them. And a mortgage broker needs to know that, and a estate planning attorney needs to know that. And that's why I say it's on a need to know basis. The next one that can bite you, and unfortunately, you're giving the other person a lot of power if you choose to share this with them. And that is if you're thinking of quitting your job or retiring from your job. And why take that risk? Why give a colleague at work that power over you that, you're upset and you're thinking of quitting your job? You don't want anybody to know that until you decide it's the time to share it. Now, it might be a good time to share with your organization once you've got your ducks in a row. And maybe you'd like to stay if it weren't for a couple things. There's a couple things that bother you, and you've decided it's the right time to share. Now, at that point, that can be a powerful thing that can help you get the changes that you need so you can be successful at the company for yourself and for the company. But to just tell somebody randomly that you're thinking about quitting or you're thinking about retiring in 2 years, that gives that person a lot of power. I want you to share when it's right for you to share. Let me give you an example. For instance, retiring. If an organization knows you're planning on retiring, maybe they say, "Hey, we heard you're thinking about retiring. For our planning purposes, how does your end sound to you?" And you might say, "Yeah, that sounds good." Well, when does your company give out bonuses? A lot of times the bonuses for the previous year are given out in January or February of the following year. And you don't want to be forced out. You want to choose the timing of when you're going to go or have as much control over that as possible, whether retiring or quitting. Okay, let's keep going. The next one is something that I learned as a financial advisor and working with attorneys. I'm not an attorney, but I have seen people give powers of attorney to other folks, typically family members, and trusting that that person's going to keep their best interest in mind. And there may be a time that you need a power of attorney, which allows somebody else to execute legal documents on your behalf and make legal and financial decisions on your behalf. And there may be a time where, you have a stroke and you lose the capacity to do that yourself, and somebody has to have that. But short of that, to give somebody that control unless it's absolutely necessary. So if you're in a situation where you think you might need to give a power of attorney, boy, have an attorney work with you to make sure have your attorney work with you, not somebody else. Even, if a child says, "Hey mom, hey dad, I need a power of attorney for this reason, and you can talk to my attorney." No, no, no. You want to talk to your attorney, somebody that has a fiduciary duty to you. So just want it on your radar screen. Again, I'm not an attorney. None of this is legal advice, certainly, and it's also not financial advice. Okay, number 4 is what you think of your boss or people that you dislike or maybe even hate, right? You have a deep dislike for those people. There's a really small circle of folks that need to know that. And regarding your relationship with your boss, if you're married again, confiding in your spouse, that's perfectly fine. But to let anybody at work know that, or even to let like maybe your kids know that, who knows? Maybe your boss comes over for dinner and A 10-year-old doesn't have the discretion, and a 16-year-old or an 18-year-old or even a 22-year-old may not have the discretion that you need with something powerful like that, or somebody that you dislike, a coworker or even a neighbor. You don't want that getting out. If you decide to release that, you want to release it in the way that's right for you. I've seen both of those bite people and cause really stressful situations, and even in some situations cause somebody to have to change jobs, because once something that like that leaks out to your boss, and your boss obviously has a lot of control. You want your boss to think that you're doing a good job. You want your boss to like you, and you want your boss rooting for you. And bosses are human too, and they have their strengths and their weaknesses, and sometimes those weaknesses are pretty tough. But the last thing you want is that information getting out in a loosey goosey way that only has downside and has no upside. Speaking of that, this is number 5, but there's a bonus coming after this one I wanna share with you. But speaking of that, and this one's kinda mixed, but if you have a serious mental health condition, be really careful who you share that with. Now, I have had, some mental health challenges. For instance, when COVID first started, it created for me, the first time in my life, some anxiety. And so I went to a professional to help me with that, and I'm glad I did, and I was pretty open about that. But if I had a long-term condition that was not event driven, where it would be normal to in my case, it would be normal to have anxiety. Now, my level of anxiety was above that, and I like being open with that because I think there's a stigma with mental health, and that's why I said this one, I've got some trepidation on saying don't share. But if you had this serious mental health issue, that can keep you from getting a job. The company may look for other reasons to get rid of you. Unfortunately, particularly here in the United States, it's tough, right? Better, faster, cheaper, and if people think that you have a mental health condition, that could work against you, and I don't wanna see that work against you. Now, I said that there was gonna be a bonus, and the bonus is never share passwords with people. Your spouse, maybe an adult child, but there are password managers, and this is really something a journey that I've been on over the last 2 years is to get much better, about my passwords, and I now use commercially available password software, and I really like it, and if I need to share a password with somebody, I can use this software, and they have to have an account with that same, company, but the password manager can actually share that password without that person knowing it. Particularly if you're reusing passwords. You give them a password for something else, but if that's the same as for your financial accounts or your email is kind of the keys to the kingdom, so be really careful. So those are the 5 things never to disclose plus 1 bonus. If you enjoyed this video, I think the next video you'll enjoy of mine is this video here that the YouTube algorithm picked out just for you. Thanks for watching this one. Bye-bye.